Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly, Uncensored.
Well, hello, here we are. Miguel and Holly Uncensored. We are live on the Miguel and Holly Facebook page, on the Miguel and Holly YouTube channel, where we just spent the last couple minutes thinking, has our streaming platform deceived us? Because all of a sudden, as we're like getting everything ready to start the podcast, Stefan Rossi on the YouTube channel, where we can see the comments, they just said, "Good morning." And Holly was like, "Are we live?" And I'm like, sure enough, I haven't pressed the live button right now.
No, we shouldn't be. I was like, well.
Then I was like, all right, I'm getting nervous. Anytime we go live, like
the crap that
like,
we have said.
Here's us like 2 minutes before we go live. You can't hear.
I'm usually cussing at Kelvin. Holly's cussing at me. And it's just a whole circle of cussing.
Debaucherous.
Cussing. So a couple things that we have to get through today.
Okay.
But the first off is we promised on Tuesday's show to talk about the blown off that happened. Okay. And so, Holly, I think we do have some people that have in the Platypus Posse that has never listened, or they don't listen to the on-air show anymore.
Oh,
just to the
anymore,
podcast.
or maybe ever. I don't know.
Right. Maybe you just found us. I'd be curious if anyone just found us online and they listen. But do you remember the blown off we did yesterday? Between Max and Janine, and what happened? I have us right when she drops what happened, when we can talk about, because there was some confusion of us trying to tap dance around what happened.
Yeah.
Because we can't legally on the radio say what happened during this blown off.
No, that's illegal.
Really?
Yeah, you can't talk about any sort of
specific.
Yeah,
like bodily functions like that.
You can't. Right. Not in that.
If you're
context.
referencing it in a medical way or like but not like sexual.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Rules.
And before you explain and set it up, Holly, Doai said, "Miguel, I love your shirt. Thank you." For those of you who can't see it, it is my Hellfire Club shirt from Stranger Things.
Yeah,
love it.
metal.
When I wore it out in public a few weeks ago for brunch, I had so many people be like, "Oh my God, I love your shirt." I was like, "Thank you."
You're like, thank you.
She's a popular girl.
Okay.
All right. So Holly, set us up right before Janine drops the bomb on why she did not want to call Max back for a second date.
I mean, it was started out pretty typical for blown off. You know, he gets a hold of us. He's like, I don't know. We had this first date. I think it was sushi. Then they went in the car and like made out. And he's like, and you know, I wanted to go further, but she said no. And I was not pushy about it, but now she won't get back to me. And I feel bad. Like, I want her to know, like, it's cool to take it slow. And so we were kind of like, okay, whatever. And we, of course, get her on the phone and she's like, oh no, he asked me to do something in the car. That was not normal.
So now here's sort of behind the scenes of Blown Off. Is Blown Off is not live. It is edited because of situations like this.
Right.
I was going to say, we literally cannot. It could not be live for multiple reasons.
Right.
This, a main one of them, because we'd get fired. But also, like, not everybody picks up the phone.
No.
Obviously.
Right.
So that's why I was like, how come everyone picks it up right away? They don't. It's because we edited it.
Some
we had to
curse.
go to the next people. Like,
Yes.
it's just,
Some like to curse.
Yes. Can I
So
tell
it's a lot.
you one of the main reasons why we wanted Kelvin to join the show is so I can give him a lot of stuff that I was doing so I can spend all my time editing Blown Off.
I don't know if you know this, but like Blown Off, we have a bit of a love-hate relationship
Yes.
with Blown Off. It's a lot of work.
So here's
So you're
what
welcome.
happened. Someone's like, I didn't ask for it, bitch. Why are you telling me you're welcome?
But you did.
All right, here's what happened when the bomb was dropped, and we'll explain.
We got to that part, but things didn't go well after that.
No. After the date, we were in his car. We were making out. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It did get pretty hot, you know? And But like right after he pulled back, like almost like panting, and he asked me to like use the bathroom, use the bathroom like right there in the car, like you know what I mean?
Oh, I
Man.
can't. Nope.
No, but we
So what I edited out. That's why it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense when you listen to it. And we had to tiptoe in the explanation is because what she said is he wanted me to pee on him in the car.
Ew, when you said it out loud, I just got so gross.
Well, how do you think I felt when I was editing?
No, I know.
I was like, this is entertaining as hell, but
Yeah.
like, we can't do that on the radio. Like you can't legally talk about peeing on someone on terrestrial radio because you will get fined by the FCC.
Yeah, they obviously someone has done that. That's why they had to make a rule. So like, can't do that.
Yeah, some of the texts that we got, people were like, I don't necessarily understand, but there was a good majority where people were like, oh no, absolutely not.
I think my
No, no,
favorite
no.
was from I think she lives in Charlotte. Her name is Raven. I just loved her message. Raven Mills. She said, y'all said a whole bunch of nothing. What did he want her to do? We're so confused.
Pee on him, girl.
I don't.
He wanted her to pee on him.
Did I even write back to that? I don't think I did.
No,
Like,
no.
girl.
I said, listen, I know, welcome to the fam, by the way, Raven. We're going to talk about it in our Uncensored podcast. So shout out to Raven Mills and Charlotte, who was like, y'all said a whole bunch of nothing.
She was so mad.
I was
But,
like,
like-
I'm sorry, but we just couldn't. So can we just, and like, I don't want to get nasty and like go into like details,
Maybe no.
but like, why? Like, why?
I don't know. I
Like-
don't know.
like-
Is it one of those things where you're like, you're already like to a point where normal stuff like is kind of boring for you and you need more and more and you're like, that's so like taboo, it's stimulating?
I think people like their submissive roles, and I think that certain kink makes them feel good. I'm
The
not
submissiveness?
Yeah,
not
I
the
think that's what it
taboo-ness?
is. I think it's submissiveness, and I think it's an umbrella, right? Like
Mhm.
the umbrella
Yeah.
of like wanting to be choked and wanting to be slapped around because some people like that. I
Yeah.
think this is just like a level very much above that.
Mm.
And
Like degrading almost?
yeah, and some people get turned on by being degraded.
Yeah. I think there's something psychologically going on there.
I
can't-
guess that's what I want to sort of delve into. Holly, I want you to armchair
I'm
therapist
gonna
us
put my
today,
therapy hat on.
right? Like,
I would not research that.
right. Well, because that's why I've always been confused. And I have a friend, obviously not going to name any names because it's not my story to tell, who did tell me that they enjoy it from time to time. And they
okay.
told me about the parameters around it. And like, I didn't want to make them feel bad about it by asking questions because
Yeah.
I don't even think that, because they're not one of those like, let's, dive down deep and understand why,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
then you probably don't. But
That's the thing. Like if you start to pick at it, if you want to pull a thread, that whole sweater is going to unravel.
But
Right.
that's what I am wondering. Like, what leads you to those types of fetishes where peeing or
Defecating.
stuff like that, or even like choking? Like I see that in a lot of, well, on the gay side of things, adult material where they'll be like, choke me till I can't breathe. And I'm like, girl, don't you put your hands around my neck? No. I don't understand those wants in the bedroom. So like, can you help me understand like on a deeper level why? Or is it just that I like what I like?
I think okay, we got to look at this whole thing because I don't want to like just blanket, right?
Right.
So I think there's not one answer. Okay, there's just not. I think some people like what they like. I
Mhm.
think some people find it, like I mentioned at first, like the crazier the thing, like they get a rush, like a dopamine, serotonin, like drug style rush from something that is outside of the norm or taboo or whatever. And I think also that some of those kinks or fetishes have, unfortunately, like here we're gonna trot out our traumatic childhood. They have some kind of psychological roots
Yeah.
that may not come from a great place, or not, maybe if even if not a great place, an unhealed place.
Right.
I'll say that. So like let's just take like the degradation fetish, right? So, and this is, again, I'm not painting everybody that likes this type of fetish with this brush, so I don't want to, this is just one aspect, I think, of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of that comes from however they possibly were raised, a form of, maybe they were ultra dominated as a child and it's sort of like a comfort, or maybe they were meant to be the responsible one all the time. They were put upon as a young adult, like you have to have it all together. That was like either the conscious or subconscious messaging they got. So in the bedroom, they're like, I'm already in control of every single aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Let me have, like, what's going to turn me on is the opposite, where someone is taking me down, or like they already are feeling down. And so like there's all different offshoots of why, but it could come from
Right.
whatever particular I can't even list the multiple numbers of circumstances that would lead to that, but it comes, the broad thing that I'm trying to say is that it comes from some sort of situation that you were in as a child or young adult, where that manifested in feeling the need to be like degraded as a turn on.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes from abuse. Sometimes it comes from trauma, sexual
or
abuse,
just
trauma, or situational. Right.
I would dare say it could even come from nowhere.
Mm.
Like, so
I think that's
you're saying,
possible,
so
too.
like you like it because you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Not everything has a psychological root.
Right. My kink, I don't even know if it's a kink, but I had talked about this openly and I had said that I love natural smells. I love the smell of like you coming back from work and just smelling like, maybe not like super nasty, sweaty out the gym smell, but like okay, I've been at work for a few hours and like I just smell like my natural self. That is my favorite thing in the world. But when you were talking about like, oh, psychologically or maybe something in my past, I'm trying to like connect the dots and I'm like, I don't know if I have any connection to that.
But that just may be a preference.
Right.
That and I think because like that's not as extreme
Right.
as something like peeing on someone.
Right.
Right.
That's
Or
true.
like if you're like, I like BO, like you've seen some of the gay dope material where they're like,
sniff.
I need you to, and I'm like, because then that makes me think of like, and I also think a lot, especially in the gay world, the adult material, some of it's so extreme that I'm like, all right, clearly this is coming from some sort of trauma. Like when you look at maybe you were bullied in the locker room, but you also have this really weird, because a lot of gay guys, we have this where the same guys that we were bullied by, we also felt a sexual attraction to. And so you're like, I hate you because you made me feel like crap. But at the same time, I want to do all these other things to you. And I like the way that you smelled or how it, so you're dealing with lots of, and I think to me, this is one of the biggest takeaways, I feel like, of the last 5 years of life for me as an adult and just watching friends go through different situations and myself, is that several different things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
And so I think that it's possible to have gone through a traumatic experience like being bullied, because I can look back as I'm starting to plan the reunion for my 20 years and as I'm going through names and yearbooks and I'm like, oh my God, I remember I really liked him, but he also didn't make me feel great. And I always had these complicated feelings as a gay teen they make fun of me, but oh my God, if he took me in a closet somewhere in high school, I would be all about it, and I'd be willing to keep his dirty little secret,
Mm.
So I think
And
that
that could put you down the path of like wanting to have like sex or sexy time or whatever and keeping it secret because now that's part of the fantasy.
right, and that's why I've always been like, God, why don't I feel weird that I don't have any. Like, I honest to God don't have any like weird fetishes that I'm like, ooh, I like this or I like that. Like sometimes I feel like with Abe, I need to like make some up. I'm like, I don't know. Like, let's try to hang from the ceiling. I don't know. Just to spice it up because my old board ass is like, all right, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. That's it.
Well, that's okay. Like, and that's
That's
okay.
Into it.
That's okay.
But-
I also want to make a quick note before we move on. Oh, go ahead. You were not done.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say that I also feel like these traumas can manifest itself in a different way. Like I'm a super control freak because my childhood was very not in control.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I
Chaotic.
was always, I didn't know if I was going to be at my grandma's house or my mom's house. And then we all of a sudden moved, when I was a preteen and things shifted and I didn't have any control over
Yeah.
where I was. And so as an adult, it manifests itself in like, I have to know everything. I've got to be in control of every single thing in my life. And I'm slowly trying to work through that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that could have manifested itself in a sexual way as well, where I could have been like, I have to be the master or I want to be a dom,
Mhm.
and I need to control the situation or vice versa,
Or that's what I'm
Be
saying, where it could go
submissive.
either way. Or
Right.
you're
Yeah.
a sub, where
Right.
you're like, every other aspect of my life is control. Let me relinquish it.
Which, by the way, I'm sorry, before you make that point, I did think, because I was like, wait, I did have a moment at the beginning of my sexual life where I did sort of flirt with being like submissive. And I was like, maybe.
Maybe that's your thing.
Right. But then the
Mm.
first time somebody, I won't go into detail, but they were trying to tell me what to do. I was like, if you don't get your mother hand from behind my head, not
You're like,
today.
Not today.
Oh
Nope.
my God.
So I
So
was like,
funny.
well, we'll just go ahead and check that off the list of things.
Guess that's not what we're
Good. At
doing.
least you tried it.
I tried it. Okay, Holly,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
What the one note that I wanted to make too, and that some of these things may come from nowhere, or if you have like a weird thing, and weird is subjective, obviously, but if you have something that's like sort of or outside of the quote unquote norm, and you're like, but there's nothing weird that happened to me. It might have, because oftentimes, especially if it was very traumatic, or if it happened when we were young, or if it whatever the case, you might not remember it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it can be, that's what's called repressed memories.
Mm.
That's a very real thing. Like you might literally not have any conscious waking memory that a thing happened, and you have like things happen or some situation comes up, or you've got these tendencies to like this or that or whatever, and you always have to be curious about yourself, be like, well, where is this maybe coming from? Well, I just like it. Well, maybe you do. And if you ever get curious one day, maybe you think about like journal. I think journaling really helps with repressed memories.
But how do you
Anytime you think
start
about
with
that,
that?
Maybe there's something in your life that you want to think about, like maybe you like people peeing on you, whatever. And so you're like, okay, let me really dig into this. And so you maybe think about it one day and you start writing down like what you find so interesting about it. You got to give yourself grace, openness, be like, hey, I'm a safe person to tell this to. It's myself. You just start writing feelings down, or why you think you might like this, or where's the first time you got that feeling? Like, what's the first time you wanted to maybe dabble in that? And where did that first time come from? Can you root back further to that? And then the more you journal and maybe have a safe person to talk to it about, you can maybe start to unearth some of those repressed memories that your subconscious might be hanging into. And so, because it's in there, like you have those memories, but as a failsafe, your brain is preventing you from remembering it. It's trying to keep you safe because it was so whatever it was at the time for you.
Right.
Traumatic or harmful or whatever. So your brain is like, you know what we're going to do to keep you safe, we're just going to put that in a little box and shove it in the back.
Mm.
And your brain is literally trying to save you and help you, which can help you in the moment. But later on, it's actually harming you because unless you deal with that, you've got unhealed trauma. And it's like you got into a motorcycle accident and you got all this road rash, and then you just let skin heal over it without picking out all the gravel.
Mm-hmm.
Gravel's still there.
Right.
Mhm.
Maybe you grew new skin, but that shit's still there. Same thing with the memories.
Mm.
So I just wanted to say that you might not remember if you had anything, but you might have.
It's very fascinating to think about how you also try to match up like those kinks, like Max, like is that, I mean, clearly if you're going on a first date and you're telling someone to pee on you, like
Yeah.
that is probably very important to your sexual menu. And so you have to find someone that matches that because, and this is me not as a person who doesn't have, any fetish like that. I would imagine like that's something that you need to in order to feel satisfied at the end of a session.
Mhm.
So if that's important to you, you have to uh have it.
But and you know what? I've noticed this oftentimes in Blown Off, maybe not often, but it's a recurring theme that people try to like pull their kink out on the first date. Like it's like that's no big deal.
Right.
Like
Right.
you have to discuss everything, and it's never going to happen on a first date. Like something wrong if you're trying to be like, "Hey, peeing, let's do this." No, like you're not going to surprise someone into just like trying out that. You always have to talk about those type of things.
I don't even know if it's a kink, but I get often turned on about a situational kink where like if a really hot doctor, which
Mm.
like if you really think about it is terrible. But like a really hot doctor just like starting some stuff on the doctor appointment. Like why? Where did that even come from?
I don't know, but like I feel like that's almost like a societal common fantasy. Like, did you watch a
Right.
porn with it like that, maybe, or something? But like,
Yes.
that's not like that out there. I
Well, it's
think
like
it's
the nerd. I mean, I think the first adult material I ever saw was Straight, and it was like the candy striper with like the guy in the room, and she's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, do you need some water?" And then things, go from there. I feel
yeah,
like those tropes of like the doctor or the
the trope,
nurse or the teacher
the
and the student,
massage,
the
Mhm.
massage.
person.
That's the one I like, girl. The massage. I'm like,
Same. I'm like, hey, but then it
"Grr."
really is awkward if you're getting a real life massage because I'm like, nope, that's not real. I'm just trying to get my muscles worked on.
Right.
That's why, like, I have a hard time. Like, my first couple massages that I've gotten in my life, I had to be like, no,
Don't
no,
think
no,
about
no,
it.
no, 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 no,
No.
no.
Mm-mm.
But I guess that goes into like that fantasy area of like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
ooh, this would be nice if something like this ever happened.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like, in all honesty, if that did happen, I would be so freaked out and I would
Right?
be frozen and be like, whoa,
It would turn into a trauma. Like,
Right.
it would be like,
oh my
Right.
God. Because there was
it's a fantasy. That's a fantasy.
Right.
right. Because there was a time my masseuse in St. Pete, who I loved so much. Oh my God. And especially through all my injuries I had in 2020 and 2021 with my knee and my back and my foot.
Mhm.
He helped work me out, but we had such a great rapport that
Mm.
I'd be like, hey, like I've been doing spin class more often. So can you help my lower back? And so
Yeah.
he got into the point where he was like helping because a lot of times your, like what's hurting you on your back or your thighs or whatever isn't that direct spot. It's a muscle that's attached to it from somewhere else.
Yes. Yes.
And so he
Mhm.
had to go into like my butt, and like really dig down in there.
Yes, mama.
And I'm like, thank God I know him now, because if this would have been like the first time and all of a sudden he's like kneading my left booty cheek, I would have been like,
Mm.
girl, what's about to happen, honey?
And then you're like, oh, this is actually just
Oh.
like an actual thing that people do.
No, I
Yeah.
had to block all those thoughts with my chiropractor. Right before I moved, I found out that my neighbor, my old neighbor, was a chiropractor. and I desperately needed to go. So I show up, and this man, I always see him just sweaty right after the gym.
Oh.
And his Instagram videos, which I've sent you guys both.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that in a chiropractor, like I thought they just press down, but sometimes they have to use their body to use force. And
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
great value Henry Cavill man is just pure delicious USDA beef.
Ooh,
Like
yes,
it is
honey.
just everything. And I could not help but think it every single time. I had like 3 sessions with him.
Ooh, yes, honey.
And I thought about it every single time.
yeah.
Maybe he'll knock on my door and been like, "Hey, we can have an at-home session."
Oh.
I said, "Yes."
But then he did not.
No,
No.
it never
No,
happened.
no.
No.
Never. It's really interesting, like what as we're talking about this, and I'm like exploring, like what is it that I do? Because I'm not like 100% vanilla, but then I think the things that like turn me on are just so weird that I'll be like, Abe, can you do this? And he's like,
Okay, so maybe that's the kink. You are interested in like are they non-sexual things?
no, it's sexual, but it's like it's more so like touching and like different places in my body. And like it changes, like
Yeah.
when I was really
depending.
young, it was like my neck. Like that was like, ooh, girl, get it, honey. And then as I've gotten older, I'm like, I feel like I've lost all sensation there.
That's not weird. We got to change that language. Maybe
it's
out of the box.
Yes, out of the box. Out of the box things. So now, okay, here's the out of the box thing that we've discovered whenever we've had where it was legal edibles.
Ah,
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about it.
Not legal here in North Carolina.
Get with it, NC. Like, what are you doing?
Girl, I wish.
Delta 8.
That's true. Oh,
Just
I need to try
saying,
that.
girl.
This there was one time we were sitting on the couch and we're just like in it watching a movie, and like he starts like touching like the crease in your arm between your like forearm and your arm. And like there's just like if you just touch it, there's
Like
nothing.
like in the middle of your elbow?
Yeah,
Like
in
the
the middle of your
inverted
elbow.
elbow?
Yes. But there's just like the way, like this special stroke back and forth or long ways that like one day he like did it and I was like, don't stop. And he was like, what? I was like, don't stop. Don't stop.
Oh, man.
Yes, mama.
And I was like, yes. So like that's, I don't know. So there's just like weird sensations on my body that like just at different times. Like if he did it now, I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. But just like sometimes it'll hit just right. And I'll be like, ooh, yes, get that crease in that arm, girl. Yes.
It's always good to know all the spots. I know all of Oscar's spots.
A spot stops working and you're like, oh, we got to retire that spot. Oh, well. Retire the inner elbow or whatever.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and then you can find new ones. I always like when people are playing with my hair, but it's not really my hair. It kind of is, but it's more like a scalp situation. So I try, like I've tried, and it's just it's probably if another woman does it, like with nails, because I've tried to explain to my person about this, and so he will very happily oblige, and he's like doing this, but he got big hands, so it's just like in there, and I'm like, no,
just chunky fingers.
I don't want to be like, no, thanks. Like he's got like long, thin fingers, but they're just big, so I'm like, let's move on. Let's move on.
He's like, hey,
do something else.
Out of there.
Does this feel good?
But I had to explain to him how, and I feel like at some point in straight men's game, they should have someone explain to them how to actually pull hair, because we were talking about hair pulling, and because he knows that I like that, and he does it pretty good sometimes, but he's like, well, am I doing it right? We just had this conversation. And then I actually did it to him because I was over explaining as I tend to do. And I'm like, you know what? Give me your head. So I did it. He's like, oh. I'm like, right. So you got to come in from underneath. And it's not like you're not like someone's like annoying cousin, like tugging. Like we're not pulling hair at the playground. And we're not even like just kind of do it like it's got to be like a firm but gentle like tug from like the back of the head.
That's
so we had that whole
interesting.
conversation.
'Cause
And
I
I don't
just-
think a lot of guys actually know how to do that. Well,
No.
maybe about half. I think half of dudes know how to do it well, and the other half is just like, oh, you like that, and you're like, no, actually, no, that hurts. Please leave me alone.
No, I saw some on Twitter, like one of the gay accounts I follow retweeted a straight video, and it was a guy like pulling a girl's hair, and I was like, "Oh, girl, no, that looks painful." I was like,
Well, I mean, everyone has a different threshold level.
yes.
So some people like to be like have their entire ass head yanked back.
Right.
Not me. Not me.
It's true.
Like,
It's true. I don't know my own strength. At least that's what I've been told.
"Oh,
So
we gotta watch out.
yeah. So I don't know. There's safe words involved
that
need to be implemented.
Yikes.
Yeah.
They go too rough.
Yeah.
Kelvin's gonna yank a whole patch of hair out.
Yeah, but you don't want that. I don't need
Get
somebody
over
yanking my
here.
actual hair out. But
Some of the comments. Shannon said, "Oh my God, yes, Holly, lessons are needed." Stefan said, "Every stroke is special."
Yes.
Anne Marie said, "Miguel and Kelvin, have you had people say, 'Oh, you are gay or pan,' because something must have happened to you as a child? I've been asked and told that many times in the past, so not true." Yes, I think for people that don't get it, have said stuff like that, where it's like, "Oh, were you abused?" Or,
And I also think that it could be true.
absolutely,
some
yeah,
people,
anything could be true,
but that's
Yeah.
not a blanket for all people in the LGBTQ community. Like
correct.
that could have had an impact on some people.
Well,
but
what I
also
always say
no.
though is like, how did you turn straight? Like, how do we know straight is the default? Like,
Right.
is there a book of DNA that says that straight is the way, and that's how every
right.
person is born?
Gay has been around for millennia. So it's not
Mhm.
like it's new.
Right.
That's where I'm always like, obviously, this is not something like a newfangled thing that we're like,
Yeah.
ooh, like it's been around.
It's really
So.
strange when because I've only been asked that by straight people. And it's very strange when straight people do not have friends in the LGBTQ. Like to give them this guidance. So I find it often maybe not exhausting is the right word, but it can be a little tricky sometimes to have a friend, because this conversation had happened with my very close friend's fiance, and she's a huge ally. But I don't think they have those conversations ever,
And yeah, maybe there was not that level of trust where there could be conversations had.
right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know.
I mean, and we talked a lot about this during the social things that we went through with George Floyd, and we were talking a lot about Black Lives Matter and how there are some people that don't want to be the explainer. They don't want to always have to sit and explain. And that was a time where a lot of my Black friends were like, I'm tired. I don't want to explain. You do the research on your own. And that was something that I was grappling with, because I was like, I actually like explaining. I like helping people go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that for some people that don't know, and they're like, hey, I've never been around a gay person in my life, or I've never had an intimate conversation with a gay person, and I'm curious about, those sort of things. I think asking, be like, hey, is that something that you'd be into and walking me through?
Right.
And I think that every gay person, every Black person, minority has every right to go, you know what? I don't want to.
Or maybe I'm not into it today.
Right.
I'm exhausted today.
It
or like maybe
depends.
later. I don't know.
It depends on the energy and how they ask, because this same person, I'm very open about saying like, yeah, I love weed, I love cannabis, et cetera, et cetera. In the same breath, he's the same person who asked me like, oh, so like, do you do meth? And I was like, girl,
like,
Man,
so for me, it's like wasted
uneducated,
breath. Yeah.
It just feels very like you need some schooling, and I'm not being paid enough to be the teacher.
It's a lot of social education that I just can't catch you up on.
Right.
You're a 30 plus year old man.
Right.
And so that's why I came up. But yes, of course, I think educating people who come from a loving place of wanting to know. I think there is some sort of responsibility. Not responsibility is the right word, but there is some sense of like we should be able to educate people, and it just depends on how you ask it.
And
It really does.
yes. Do you really want to know for good reasons? Or do
Right.
you just want like the 2-minute elevator speech? Because
Mhm.
for like even some stuff in my personal life, like I would love to like sit down and have like a psychological conversation about various things. But again, the energy. So I'm not going to put into all this if I realize that you're not really going to receive it.
Right. Right.
And so, and also, like, do you just want to ask because you feel like you should, or do you not really care that much? Like, how much of my story do I share with you? Because it's a lot and
Mhm.
it can be personal,
Yeah.
and you don't want to spend all this time with someone that you don't feel is going to receive it and respect it for what it is.
Right.
Mm.
I had a straight friend who didn't understand why pride was so risque, and there shouldn't be children going there. And I was like, "Girl, that's our space.
Right.
Like we
Mm.
ain't inviting children to
Right.
our
That's what I
own
was gonna say.
space."
Well, that's people choosing to be like.
Right.
You're not holding a sign up that's like, here's the children's section.
Right.
Right.
And
Like
it
it's an
took
open space, but it's like that's not.
him a while to understand that.
Yeah.
And then that conversation had started up again with this whole, banning drag queens from or banning children from drag queen shows.
Mm.
And he went real south with it. And at that point, I was like, I have had so many conversations with you about this specific
Mhm.
subject. And he ends up calling it pedophilia. And at that point, I was like, I cannot be friends with you anymore. This was like a really good friend from middle school. And I was like, I can't.
Man.
I cannot. I blasted him all over social media. I covered his photo except on the last screenshot, which was half on purpose, half not really. And then he was getting crazy on me, like, take that off. I would never do this to you. But I almost felt like it felt so good. It was a little evil, but it
Right.
felt good
Well,
to call him out.
You're calling people like pedophiles that like that's not even in their worldview. Like
Right.
I'm so tired of these people who just throw these phrases out here like that for the gay community
Yes.
for a political point, when it's like, wait a minute, hold on, let's go back and look at people that you look up to from your
Mhm.
political party that actually are pedophiles and that are just trying to like cover themselves
Mhm.
and like
It's-
throw off from what the truth is.
It's desensitizing to the word. I actually just had this conversation with some Twitter friends of mine. Doise is one of them actually here on, I think she's still on the thing, where it's like we are throwing out terms like grooming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is dangerous. You can't just throw out, like, you can't just call someone a groomer. First of all, do you know the definition of that word?
Right.
Because what you're using it for is incorrect. And when you use it incorrectly, it takes away from what it actually is. Like, that is something to be careful about. You should know what to look for when it comes to someone who might be grooming a child or even a teen or an adult for devious purposes.
Right.
But just because you don't like gay people doesn't mean you can call them groomers, because that's wrong. And you're using that word to like basically like stoke the fire.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get a rise. And it is doing a huge disservice to people that need to be safe from actual groomers.
Right.
And the same thing goes with pedophiles, which, by the way, there's a very specific definition for that word. And I guarantee 90% of you, literally you, don't even know the definition of that word.
Right.
Oh, somebody likes kids. Look it up. There's a very specific definition of what that is. So we use that word correctly. We're going to have to use that word correctly. We're going to use groomers correctly. We're going to use the term gaslighting correctly. And I use that word myself, but it has a very narrow definition. And if we just start calling everything gaslighting, somebody at work was mean to me, well, they're gaslighting me. Well, no, they're not.
Right. Right. How?
Maybe they're bullying you.
Right.
Maybe they're being emotionally and verbally abusive to you, but are they gaslighting you?
Right.
Like, let's start using the words that we use in the correct sense, because the people, especially politically, that are tossing some shit out are muddying these waters, and it's dangerous.
But unfortunately, like we've touched on a couple of times, we are entering into very, very dangerous times. And like I've said before, there is a difference between a conservative Republican and another where you are a Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, that you are delusional and you are not in the same truth that everyone else is in.
Yeah.
And so that is what's really scary to me, is because they're throwing out these terms when they're talking about, oh, well, they should shut down these restaurants and the drag queens should be arrested for having kids at these drag shows. Did they force those parents to bring those kids to that drag show?
Right.
No. And every drag show,
No.
every drag brunch I've been to, every drag show that's not at a nightclub, the host that's there, because I've hosted drag shows before, I go, are there any kids here? Are there any kids here? No. All right. We can be, say whatever. Oh, there's a kid over there. All right. We'll keep that in mind as we go about the show.
Right.
But it just fucking pisses me off that, once again, gay people, who are such a small fragment of our population, are the ones that have to be at the end of these culture wars of them trying to rile their base up to get people to vote, when you are literally endangering the already marginalized people that are trans or black gay or any sort of minority gay or any gay that can't pass. You are endangering them for what cost? We're not living in the same reality right now, and things are getting fucking dangerous, especially with the whole thing with Trump being raided by the FBI. And like, they're like, well, oh my God, if the FBI could raid the president, he could raid you. Girl, who gonna raid my house? Well, I got nothing. I have never been the president, nor will I be the president. The FBI is not coming to Uptown to raid my place.
And also, yes, they could if they thought you were doing something illegal and had proof and a warrant. That's the point. Like,
and can I just say this? Like, I have really, over the past couple weeks, there's liberal podcasts I listen to, and they made a great point. They said the more times that we repost stuff that like Matt Gaetz says or Marjorie Taylor Greene or the crazy outlandish stuff they say, they're doing, when we repost it on our social media, we're doing exactly what they want us to do, to get liberals angry, to get us crazy and upset. So I've really made a conscious effort to not share, but then there's sometimes I can't not. But
that's the thing, you're giving them the attention that they're like a bully. They're giving them the attention that they want, because we all know their names.
Absolutely.
I've stopped sharing Trump things on my Insta story that make him look like an idiot. But I'm like, for what? At what cost? He's not the president, so who gives a fuck?
Right.
But man, there are some times
in the public eye, just ignore, unless it's something is like, like, I think that the raid was obviously purposeful news to share.
Oh, it was news. That's never happened in the
news.
history of our country, a president being investigated like that. But I did share a funny meme of what it looked like Melania, like, trying to get all her stuff and her $300 passport to go from home. And I was like, okay, that's funny, no matter, even if that was a Democrat or whatever. But the thing that the hypocrisy, and this is what we'll end on, is the crazy Republicans that are like, defund the FBI, defund. I'm like,
well,
are you fucking kidding me? Wait a minute. You told us 2 years ago, you crazy liberals, you can't defund the police. What?
Okay,
really?
Well, here's why. They think the FBI has been compromised. So, of course. Then they're also like, oh, well, they're going to say it, so now I can say it. Like, this doesn't make any damn sense. That's why I'm like, I hop offline. I'm like, this is, okay, here we are.
I legit laughed. When I saw that, I laughed, and I was like, we're just getting, it's just ridiculous now. Like, it's like, you know what, girl? Just keep tweeting, honey. Just keep tweeting.
People get so riled up. Oh, my goodness.
Holly, what's all your social media?
Radio Holly on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
Kelvin?
At Kelvin Live, KELBINLIVE, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, maybe OnlyFans.
Oh, hey, keep putting that out there, girl.
It's going to manifest.
Is it there or not?
It's going to manifest itself.
Do we need to look for it? Like, maybe we'll find it, or okay.
We're going to look. I forgot, before I say my social media, we're going to have Stacy, the soul worker, on Friday.
Nice.
To do a couple of readings. Okay. So if you want to shoot me an email, and it'll just obviously be on the podcast, and she will do her thing, and we'll sit back, and it'll happen. And you'll just tell me your name and your phone number, and the first 2 people that do it, we will make it happen on Friday's podcast.
Perfect.
Miguel at iHeartRadio.com.
Can she do me?
Yeah, she can do you.
You want to do it on the podcast?
Sure. I mean, how personal does it get?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she would never like throw you under the bus.
Gotcha.
No, but I mean, you gotta,
But it is
could get
personal.
personal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, is our email media or radio? Is it iHeartMedia?
Yeah, it's iHeartMedia. Yeah.
Okay. Miguel at iHeartMedia.com. Send me an email with just your name and your phone number. Laura said, will you actually open the email? Yes, just to get your name and phone number. But we're not going to like set you up and try to like screen it or anything. It'll just go. Okay. And we'll do that on Friday's podcast. All of my social media is Miguel Fuller on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, make sure to hit up the Miguel and Holly Instagram. Kelvin's doing such a great job with all the posts on there. Thank you very much. And leave us a rating and a review. We'll see you Friday. Bye.
Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Catch it on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you listen to podcasts.